On today's show, along with our real estate news, we're going to be talking about why staging is so important, creative storage ideas, and more. So let's jump right in. Okay, so it's the start of a new week. We're back at it again. And today I wanted to start us off with some creative storage ideas that I saw on Instagram and a couple other cool sites like that. So I've got a little collage that's going to be popping up for us of stuff that you can see, or I guess a slideshow. And I want to start with this folding step ladder that comes out of essentially where like a cupboard would be. And it's super narrow, unfolds really easy, and instead of having a step ladder around, very nice, easy way to get access to all your stuff, right?
Yeah, for sure. I love that. I'm short, so to me, that's like built-in step stool. I love it.
Absolutely. Next, we got larger under the stair pull-out storage. We've seen stuff like this before. It's very cool. Stair drawers are a new one. I've just seen these for the first time, but essentially the flat side of the stair pulls out and you got drawers there. Sofa bunk beds, with the changing shape of Canadian families, real easy for the kids to come over when they visit now. This is how I picture it for like condo living.
Yeah.
HBO's The Wire is always the one that comes to mind when McNulty is looking after the kids and he's got to put together the IKEA furniture and just has the worst time ever.
Yeah.
And so when I saw this, that's instantly what I thought of.
We've all been there.
Yeah, with IKEA for sure.
Yeah, with IKEA.
Yeah. Chairs that fit into a table. See these in condos a lot. Very smart idea.
Yeah.
The fold-down table from the side of the wall. I've only seen these a handful of times, but super cool, very creative idea, use of space.
Yeah.
Next, we have a dining room table that turns into a pool table.
That's cool.
Super cool. The amount of times I've been places in homes where I'm like, I really wish I had room for a pool table, but just never had the space. This makes it look like it's a possibility. Painting that doubles as jewelry storage. I've seen creative ideas like this before where you have stuff on the wall and like either you take it down or it folds down and there's storage in behind it. Very neat idea. And a hideable dog bowl drawer as well as a cat house planter. So you got pets in the house.
So cool.
Yeah, and specifically with the dog bowl, I don't know about you, but if you've ever stepped in like the cat's water bowl or the dog's water bowl,
spilled it once a week.
Yeah, spilled it on the kitchen floor. I thought this was a great idea. Very convenient and nice way to tuck it away.
Cool.
All right, so why don't you jump into your first topic of the day?
Yeah, my first topic of the day is it really worth it to have your home staged?
Okay.
So what we're talking about is, when you're getting your house ready to go on the market, we hear a lot of people say, don't spend the money on staging. It's not the cheapest thing in the world, which is very true. And then we have the other side, which is it'll make you more money. So the article I'm reading today is from Forbes, and basically they're talking about the benefits of home staging. I would say as an agent that generally speaking, staging is always going to be a benefit.
Absolutely.
And there's different approaches to staging that we could get into. You could do some staging on your own if you have some tips. You don't have to spend, hiring a stager. And it can be as simple as some paint, some decor, and some decluttering, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
But the main stuff that you should be thinking of when you're looking at getting your house ready to sell is how's it going to look in photos? Because we live in an online world. We really do, right? And everybody who's searching for a home, they either get they're matching their email daily from their realtor, or they're on realtor.ca or one of those other websites, and they're looking at pictures. And it's the picture that gets the person into the house. So when we look at a staged picture versus a non-staged picture of the same room, you can see a significant difference.
It's clear as day.
It's clear as day. It makes the world. It actually makes me want to stage my house because they look that good, and people are going to look at coming into them. So you got to think about that. That first impression. What's that worth? Right? Because we know that we got to get people in the door to get the home sold. The next thing that they talk about is it makes it easier for other buyers to imagine themselves in that space.
Yeah, absolutely.
This is a huge point when we have these conversations about staging, is that when you have a lot of your own personal stuff in the space, or it's clearly a lived-in home, people have a harder time like imagining that they could live in this space. They can't visualize themselves there. And for a lot of buyers who can't see past any of that, which is very true most of the time because they're not in houses every day, this staging can be a huge factor towards helping buyers say, oh, I could live here. Yeah. Versus going, oh, look at this person's pictures from their wedding or from that someone else lives here. That's a big differential point with staging.
Yeah, depersonalizing as well.
Depersonalizing. And on top of that, you can highlight the features of the home, right? So when people do come into the home and they say, hey, you know, look at this beautiful fireplace that's now accented by whatever it is that's there.
Or the rest of the decor around the room.
Yeah, the layout being more kind of exposing the size versus maybe the functional living of the space. Because sometimes we see staging and it's not very like livable, but it does accentuate the space, right?
Yeah.
And so those are the articles in the argument for staging. You know, I think that there's a lot of factors around the conversation of staging. Cost is the biggest one.
Yeah.
And so my thoughts on it are, you know, it is worth it. There are ways you can navigate the cost if you're willing to do some work. If you don't want to do the work, it's going to cost you more money, as with everything else, right? And then, you know, obviously talk to your realtor. They might have a staging program that they use or a stager that they use that you can get discounts, right?
Yeah.
So what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's worth the investment. And of course, there are tiered needs for staging. Obviously, a vacant home or rooms that don't have, houses that don't have enough furniture in them or the wrong furniture in them will cost you a little bit more money to stage properly. But it's definitely worth it. I mean, when you walk into a staged home, you can feel it, but it does feel better. And you walk in and you can see the use of the home. You can see all the space versus, you know, people when we live in our homes, it may be very well laid out, but it's not as appealing. That's why you know, new home sale centers are so perfect and why they've got it down to an art, and stagers have taken that and brought it into resale homes, and I think it's a very good thing.
Yeah, and I've always been taught as well, picture a model home.
Yeah.
That's where the concept of staging really kind of comes from.
Yeah.
At least that's my understanding. And please correct me if I'm wrong, stagers out there. But that is my understanding, that's the idea, that it's supposed to feel new.
Yeah,
it's supposed to feel like no one's lived there and it's yours. And that attracts buyers at a higher level, right? So in a market that's changing and where we're seeing homes sit a little longer before they
all
sell,
the more important.
It's way more important now to have your home looking like it's the best option out there for those buyers, especially online, than it was, you know, a year ago or 2 years ago when buyers were buying because that was what was there.
Yeah,
right? So,
absolutely.
Yeah.
All right, so I'll jump in with the next one here. And the headline is OREA welcomes planned repeal of the Green Energy Act. Really what this is about is the Ontario government is now repealing legislation that would have required home sellers to obtain a home energy audit before they sold their home. And so OREA's CEO, Tim Hudak, is, you know, an advocate of this, and mostly because it's another cost that would be put on homeowners, and so they're okay with that being removed. I kind of land on the same spot that the Energy Act in itself, we could go down a deeper rabbit hole, but the idea of not having homeowners have to do this, I think is a good thing.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I didn't really like it to begin with. I think that, you know, it presents just a whole plethora of issues that if you have an older home and, you know, it is what it is. The windows are going to be less efficient. Your furnace might be still mid-efficiency if you haven't updated it in the last 15 or so years, right? So now you're going to have to do all that to pass this audit just to be able to sell your home. Like, it seems like a lot of undue cost for the seller. Right?
Ultimately, I think the people that it punishes the most are the people that don't have the funds to either update the house or to even run the audit themselves. So overall, I think there are some people that it would hit harder than others. So I think it's a good thing.
I agree with that, and then, you know, I also think that when a home is older, it's reflected in the price. Yeah. Right. We know that if you're going in and everything's updated, 100%. You're gonna pay more than if you have the same house not updated. So at the end of the day, like, you're just hitting the sellers pretty hard on that one, because the buyers, you're gonna see your break on the price if that stuff isn't updated. So it's not really a negative impact on the buyers, right? So I'm happy. I think that's great news, and I agree with you. Yeah, that's not add more expenses to selling a home if we can, honestly. Yeah,
and so I'll give you the quote here from Hudak, and so he says, "This program threatened to put consumers at risk with no set standards to protect senior citizens or other homeowners from unscrupulous operators who could pressure them into unneeded repairs. Seniors and low-income families rely on hard-earned equity in their homes. A lower energy score on their home would have cost them thousands of dollars in precious retirement savings with no little or discernible benefit to the environment." And so he does use some language in there that I don't necessarily agree with in how he's making his point. Yeah. But at the same point, I do agree that I don't know how much of a benefit we're really seeing with adding this cost in there, specifically to the environment. So, you know, again, I'm okay with it being removed. Yeah. All right. What do you got? What do you got next for us?
Yeah, my next article is what to look for when you're buying a condo. Right. So. We're kind of in the stage now where condos are becoming a big option for a lot of people, just from an income point of view, right? Detached and semi-detached homes are getting out of price range for a lot of people.
Yep.
So what we want to talk about and what this article talks about is when you are looking into purchasing your condo, what should you be thinking about for a usability factor and for a resale factor. The first section that they reference is actually on resale versus new, which is always a hot topic. So I love this one. The author of the article goes towards the concept now that with new homes being as popular as they are, that you're not getting that discount that you used to get when you bought new. It used to be that you would buy new and it wouldn't be the same price as market value because it would take 4 or 5 years. The builders are holding your money, all those elements would go into it. Whereas now those prices at the sales centers are matching market value, high, and you're still not getting a home for 4 or 5 years. When if you buy resale, you could potentially buy it. You could live in it right away. Yeah. You could rent it out. We know that rent's now at $2,200 if you're in the downtown core, and it's close to $2,000 up around like the northern parts of the city as well, if not over that. I think at this point, so you could have a better investment right off the bat with a resale versus a new. So that's changed a little bit. The next thing that comes up and something you should always be thinking about is square footage. Yeah. So again, we get into the conversation of, do you buy an older building or do you buy a newer building, even if it is resale, right? Because we know that the newer buildings, anything built really in the last, I'm going to say 8 years, maybe even 5 years, they're getting quite small. Yeah. They're getting smaller and smaller as time goes on. Whereas the older buildings, you get a bit more square footage. So from a resale point of view, if you buy an older building from a reputable company that's well managed, is that a better investment? Something you should be thinking about as well. And the third point, and I'm really excited to hear your hot take on this, is buying a unit with a den so you can convert it into a bedroom. We see this sometimes. Yeah, we do. What comes into play here is what size is the den, but also keep in mind closet and window, right? Yeah. When it comes to actually having a legitimate bedroom and how you're going to market it, has to have a closet, has to have a window, right? Yeah. Now, some dens have those features, some dens don't, but the author of this article is emphasizing that that's a great way to make more money down the road, because if you put up the wall and the door, you could sell it as a 2-bedroom versus a 1+1, or a 3-bedroom versus a 2+1. Yeah. I'm not so sure that I agree with that part of the article necessarily. Yeah. I do agree with the square footage. I do think a building that's a little bit older, as long as it's well managed, your maintenance fees are reasonable, is still a safe bet, and that extra square footage is nice over the smaller, newer buildings. However, I think these are all great things to think about, and if you are thinking about buying a condo, you should sit down and decide what is important to you in regard to why you're buying the condo, what your use of the condo is going to be, and then your resale value, right? Because you're not going to be there for 20 years most likely, so you have to take that into consideration. So, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I'll just talk about
There's a lot there.
I'll just talk about the 1+1. I think that buying the 1+1 in general is a great idea. I think it's probably the most bang for your buck and safest investment wise, because there isn't as much of a difference between the 1+1s and the 1-bedrooms anyway. So you're getting good bang for your buck for that square footage boost that you're getting and the usability of the space, versus sometimes you see a big jump from the 1-bedrooms to the 2-bedrooms, or even the 1+1s to the 2-bedrooms. Yeah. And you can use that for a lot. Like, I wouldn't say that you could market it as a 2-bedroom down the road, because you can't do that. But for people that are young families in condos, having that as like a little nursery or an office space, stuff like that, it's very important and very useful. So in that sense, I say buy the 1+1 if you can't get to the 2-bedroom. But
But can you market it as a 2-bedroom down the road? Probably not. Yeah, unless you get it changed somehow with the condo board. Yeah. But I don't think that's a thing happening.
We're kidding. All right. Okay, so we're good with that one.
Yeah, we're good with that one.
Okay, so my final one for the day is about the economy again. We've talked about it so much, but got another little report here, and I think it's just hammering home some of the stuff that we've talked about before. So the Conference Board of Canada has readjusted their forecast. They said that the Canadian economy is going to go up 0.2% higher than what they originally said. So they're expecting 2% growth in 2018 versus before it was 0.2% lower. And the important thing of the headline that I read is that they're not anticipating a major correction in terms of what's going on in the housing market. And we talked about this a few times. Don't anticipate another major correction. What we will see though is likely a cooling off is what they're forecasting. And again, this is nationwide. This isn't specific to the GTA. But with the increase in interest rates that we might see in October, I think that's a safe forecast for them that we could see an additional cooling off, especially nationwide. The other thing that they mentioned that I just wanted to bring up was that they are expecting that rate hike in October, as well as they're predicting 3 times in 2019.
Wow.
So 3 further hikes in 2019 is their forecast.
That's a big one.
Yeah, that's a big one.
Okay.
So, all I would say about that is if you're on the fence and you are thinking about making a move, that it's a good time to reach out to your mortgage broker, get at least a rate hold, and then reach out to your realtor and start talking about, hey, what are my options? What kind of a plan can I make? But at least then you're locked in and you can make a decision if you want to, or you sit back and do what it is. But,
and I think it's very safe to say that, with the potential increase and then the 3 next year, that the cool off is a pretty safe prediction.
Bet,
So, from the buying point of view, that's great. However, if your rates are going up while the market's cooling off, it's going to cost you the same.
Yeah.
So you got to think about that when you're looking at timing. Try and, get in at the lower rate, because that's a 5-year minimum term where you're at that rate, versus getting lower pricing, higher rate. If the market goes back up and you're still paying the higher rate when you come out of that, you might be in a different situation.
Yeah,
so you got to really consider that sort of stuff.
Yep. Yeah. Perfect. So that puts a pin in that one.
So my third article, more of a commentary than an article in itself. It is from the Toronto Star, but one of those advice columns. So I just love the topic. It's how to avoid buying a home with serious defects. Okay. So kind of a big topic for buyers.
Yep.
And for sellers, really, in regard to, knowing the condition of your home. So what they get into in here is, what do you do as a buyer when you're looking at a home to make sure you're protected and that you're not getting into a scenario where you're going to buy a home that has major issues. Now, there are 2 different types of issues. There's patent defects and latent defects, right?
Yep.
Which we all know about. And so basically, the patent defects is when there's a problem with a home that are easily observed by the untrained eye.
Yeah.
So a home inspector or even an agent with a lot of experience can kind of notice some of this stuff. It might be a leaky faucet. It might be, a bit of mildew, something like that. And then latent defects are defects that are not discernible by the eye, and that a specialist would have to basically be able to find. So, it could be air condition, it could be some structural issues, things like that. Right?
But also including even stuff that a home inspector might not find, like if it's behind the walls, stuff like that, because they're not allowed to break anything down to take a look.
Right.
Those kind of defects.
Exactly. And so how do we protect ourselves against that when we don't know what's behind the wall? Reality is that it's buyer's due diligence in regard to buying a property. That's how it works. If it is, the latent defects, then there could be some recourse if there was a major problem. However, you have to be able to prove that it was known.
Yeah.
So that becomes a bit of a challenge. So what they recommend in the article, and I completely agree with it, is that when you have your home inspection done, a lot of people just do a home inspection and then they take it and we negotiate, and then they either buy the house or they don't buy the house, right?
Yep.
But the reality is, you have every right, if there's a concern that maybe there might be termites, if there's a structural concern, if there's a moisture concern, a mold concern, you can expand your conditions and bring in specialists to make sure that you're not buying a home with these major defects. So your agent should be advising you to do that. If there is a termite concern, you can get a termite inspector. It's going to cost you another $400 or so to get these inspections done. I'm not sure of all the prices. However, I'm sure it's between that range of $4,000 to $1,000, probably depending on the specialist. And they can tell you, based on their professional training, whether it's a major concern or it's something that is somewhat more easily fixable. So definitely worth going through that process, even if, it does take a little longer, or, people aren't as happy about the fact that you want to do this and take these extra precautions. But at the end of the day, if you don't find out what that issue might be, that could be, I don't even know how much of a cost down the road if you don't get that problem resolved, and then you have to deal with it. Right? Especially if it hasn't been maintained by the current owner, which is also something we don't always know. We can ask, but we can't always know. So just know that you do have the right to have those additional inspections, assuming the seller agrees to continue or extend the condition if you're within that time frame, right? Yeah. So that's really the best way as a buyer, because at the end of the day, like I said earlier, it is your due diligence, and you should have a realtor who's keeping you protected every step of the way and making sure that you're taking the necessary steps to rectify any concerns you might have.
Yeah,
Right?
exactly.
So I know that you're probably going to agree with me. It's a pretty straightforward topic,
It
but
is,
I like the topic.
Yeah,
and we don't talk about it enough.
Yeah, having a home inspection done is very important. It's the key items that you always kind of want to look at are, roof, foundation, the major structural stuff, and then obviously your expensive, mechanical stuff like the furnace and the AC and that. Yeah. And as sellers, if you are aware of a defect that is a latent one that isn't easily detectable, you do have to disclose that.
You do have to disclose.
And I would talk to your lawyer and ask, hey, is this something that I need to disclose and whatnot? And I'm sure they're going to say yes, because they want to make sure that you're covered as well.
Yeah.
Because the buyer can come back and sue you if you knew about something that you didn't tell them.
Disclose,
yeah, that's a major one, exactly. So,
yeah.
And then if in your walkthrough with your agent pointing things out, like maybe you're in an area where there are termites, then put that termite inspection in there at the beginning.
Yes.
And if there is, mold or something, or you're worried about asbestos or any of those things, have those in there right away and get somebody in there to check them out.
Yeah, and make sure that if you have those conditions in there and you get an offer accepted, get those inspections booked right away, because it can take a couple of days. And if you only have a week and you got to get through a few inspections, it can get a little hairy.
Absolutely.
So make sure you give yourself enough time as well to do your due diligence.
Yep. So that's our show for today. I hope you enjoyed it. Don't forget to subscribe.
Yeah, the links to the articles are going to be down in the bottom, so you can click on those if you want to get more information or see what we're looking at. If you have any comments or if there's any topics you want to hear us talk about, just send us a message. We'd love your feedback.
Absolutely.
And other than that, thanks for joining us.